Roberta Metsola set to become acting president after David Sassoli dies. 37 Maltese police officers are currently suspended over criminal investigations, and a record number of irregular migrants are repatriated from Malta. All this and more on today's episode of Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Matt Baldacchino, joined by my co-host today, Jonathan Cilia. It's another cold January afternoon. Hope you're all cozy, enjoying our, lovely faces as we give you a rundown of today's breaking news. And we have quite a lot to dig into today, don't we?
That's exactly right, Matt. So let's jump into the first story. A major story for anyone following Maltese politics. Maltese MEP Metsola looks set to become the acting president of the European Union following the sudden death of David Sassoli, who was the former president now. So obviously Malta and Europe has been shocked by the sudden death of Sassoli, who was 65 years old. He's an Italian former journalist who rose in the ranks to become the president of the European Parliament. He died after being admitted to the hospital for 2 weeks. He's been in hospital for 2 weeks, and the details around his death aren't really clear yet. But what is clear is that Roberta Metsola is set to take on his role now. She is already obviously vice president of the European Parliament. And funnily enough, strangely enough, the election for the next president was going to take place very, very soon, next week, Wednesday 19th. But now that Sassoli has passed away, it seems like they'll have to speed up the process a little bit. And Metsola is set, or from what we're hearing, is set to become the new president. So this would be the highest and most powerful role a Maltese politician has ever held in European politics.
Yep. Obviously, Europe and Malta has reacted to the passing of David Sassoli. Key figures have spoken out. Case in point, Bernard Grech, PN leader, said, "Your loss leaves us all saddened. Thank you all for your contribution towards social justice and democracy. Your loss is a loss for all of Europe." Prime Minister Robert Abela himself also chimed in, said, "Deeply saddened by the death of European Parliament President David Sassoli. His contribution to the European Parliament for more solidarity and more democracy will live on." Moving into our next story for this evening, 37 Maltese police officers are currently suspended over criminal investigations. This figure was revealed by Home Affairs Minister Byron Camilleri following a parliamentary question by PNMP Beppe Fenech-Adami. No names or details were given about these people who were suspended or what offences they were suspended over. It's possible that the bulk of these offences are tied to the extra-duty abuse racket back from February 2020, which saw a bunch of traffic officers make away with thousands of euros by reporting for overtime work they would not turn up for. We actually did a video interview here at Lovin Malta by yourself, if I'm not mistaken.
That's exactly right. If you guys remember the interview we had done with the officers who had spoken to us, obviously on condition of anonymity because they were still acting officers at the time, they had opened up how they felt they were being scapegoated. That sure, someone might have stolen a bit of fuel or petrol for their vehicle here and there, or someone might have called in a bit of extra overtime, but what their superiors were doing was gravely much worse. So I do invite you to check out that interview with them to get a bit of an insight into what lower level officers are seeing within the force and how they feel they are being made scapegoat. So it hasn't been confirmed that these 37 officers are those, but it seems very, very likely that they are. And this comes as Malta continues to fight against money laundering. Let's not forget Malta was grey listed by the FATF last year, so it is very, very important that Malta does keep up the fight. Talking about irregularities, a record number of irregular migrants have been repatriated from Malta. Home Affairs Minister Byron Camilleri has revealed that 448 migrants have been sent back forcibly to their home country. So these are people who would have fled their country for whatever reason, be it war, famine, being targeted for their sexual orientation. There's quite a number of reasons, who would have left their country in the Middle East or Africa or wherever they're from, crossed the continent, crossed the sea, made it to Malta, and are now sent back. It turns out that 90% of these 448 are male. So very, very interesting to note there. And the cost of repatriation is around €500,000, just over €500,000, the bulk of which comes from EU funds. But, you know, with Malta at the forefront of this ongoing migration crisis. It's very interesting to see just how many have been sent back. These 448 are the amount that have been sent back over the last year. So this isn't even over the last 10 years that Malta has been battling with this crisis.
Yes, I think it's reflective of the strong stance, right, that the government has had over the last 2 years. I mean, Prime Minister Robert Abela himself has said multiple times over that Malta is really full up, and that's a whole discussion in and of itself. Next story for the evening. The government has rolled up an app, I can't speak, it's clearly the evening. The government has rolled up an app to verify COVID-19 certificates. This is, of course, ahead of the enforcements that are coming into place on the 17th of January. These will be used by establishments to verify the authenticity of COVID-19 certificates. It's called CovePass Malta and can be used on both digital and physical certificates. If you have a digital certificate, you're going to need a separate app called Green Pass, which can also be downloaded. And then whenever you attend an establishment, be it a restaurant, a gym, a bar, or similar one, the business in question will scan it. If you're in the clear, you'll be let through. If you're not, you won't be let in. A clear COVID status is a vaccination certificate from accepted vaccines, so Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, or Johnson & Johnson, or a negative COVID-19 test certificate, which is valid for 72 hours following a negative PCR test.
Now, it's important to remember, as Matt said, that from the 17th of January, establishments such as restaurants, gyms, bars, they will be asking to see your certificate and they will be scanning, so it's good to be updated and just be aware of this. That said, and this is something that Lovin Malta is looking into, we are hearing that, there might be challenges to the 17th of January rules from the EU. So let us see if it actually does come into force, but it looks like it will be as it stands. So definitely get the app, make sure you're verified and up to date with it so you can just enjoy restaurants and bars and whatnot from the 17th onwards. And moving on to the final story, very interesting story. So a new tender coming out of Gozo for Gozo ferry workers has raised the alarm and raised concerns that, the government might be trying to buy their votes as election season is on the way. So, the date of the next general election has not been confirmed. We are hearing it could be April, May, maybe March. And ahead of that, this tender has come out. This tender is open until 27 January. That's looking for a third-party contractor to provide crew for state-owned enterprise in Gozo. Now, the thing is this, why is there concerns? Because every election season, we hear stories of hundreds of jobs being bought out by the government specifically for their vote. Someone's looking for a job, it's election season, they get a nice cushy job, they might not have the requirements for the job, but they get the job. Either way, obviously, we expect your vote in return for you getting this job. So, just looking at the last general election, 2017, there were claims that almost 1,000 Gozotans were recruited to jobs with the government or subcontracted agencies right before the June election. The late assassinated journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia had even looked into this. She's done a bunch of reports on it, and she suggested that hundreds of these people were employed directly through the Gozo channel. So Lovin Malta will definitely be following this story. It's just come out now, but it wouldn't be the first time that we heard of something like this in Malta.
Absolutely. NSO figures from 2017 itself showed that the public sector full-time employment increased by almost 500 jobs, right? And the government's own financial estimates showed that Gozo's public service wage bill was up 40%. It was 90 million in 2013 and 27 million in 2021. Obviously, Gozo is a hotly contested 13th district, unless I'm getting my numbers wrong. Exactly, with Labour hoping to hang on to the slim majority that they have over the PN. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Matt and Jonathan Celia, and have an evening full of lovin'.